Staff Sergeant Madison Clark had killed 37 people in her 6-year career, and not one of them ever saw her coming. That was the entire point of being a Guardian sniper. You existed in the shadows, operated from distances measured in kilometers, eliminated threats before they could harm the teams you were protecting. The people you saved never knew your name, never saw your face, never realized that their successful missions depended on someone lying motionless in frozen mud or scorching desert, making impossible shots while they did their jobs. Madison preferred it that way. Solitude was her natural state, isolation was her comfort zone, and anonymity was the price she gladly paid for being the best at what she did. But on this particular morning in the Siberian border region, everything she knew about Guardian operations was about to change. She'd been tracking a SEAL fire team through the snow-covered terrain for the past 4 days, maintaining position between 800 meters and 2 kilometers from their element, providing invisible overwatch as they conducted reconnaissance on a suspected arms trafficking network operating along the Russian-Mongolian border. The temperature had been hovering around -25°C, cold enough to kill unprepared people within hours. But Madison had grown up in Alaska and spent 6 years learning to operate in the world's harshest environments. Cold was just another variable to account for, like wind or distance. Through her spotting scope, she watched the SEAL team halt in a shallow valley to conduct a map check and communications update. 4 professionals moving with tactical precision. Lieutenant Jake Hendricks leading the element, Senior Chief Devin Cole providing security, Petty Officers James Rivera and Tyler Bennett covering their flanks. Good operators who knew their business. That's when Madison spotted the problem. Movement on the ridgeline to the east, maybe 1,500 meters from the SEAL position. She shifted her scope and felt ice form in her stomach that had nothing to do with the temperature. Armed fighters, at least 20 of them, moving with the kind of tactical discipline that suggested professional military training rather than local militants. They were positioning themselves on the high ground, with clear overlapping fields of fire into the valley where the SEALs had stopped. This wasn't a random encounter. This was a prepared ambush, and the SEAL team was about to walk directly into it. Madison keyed her radio, using the encrypted frequency that connected her to both the SEAL team and the Tactical Operations Center. SEAL 1, Overwatch. You have hostile forces moving to establish ambush positions on the eastern ridgeline, bearing 085 from your position. I count at least 20 personnel with heavy weapons. Recommend immediate displacement. Hendricks's voice came back instantly, controlled but sharp. Overwatch, can you confirm hostile intent? We're in a gray area for rules of engagement. Through her scope, Madison watched the hostile force continue their tactical positioning. Machine guns going into place, RPG teams selecting firing positions, designated marksmen finding elevated hides. There was no question about their intent. SEAL 1, they're setting up an L-shaped ambush with your position as the kill zone. Heavy machine guns, multiple RPG teams, at least 3 designated marksmen. This is a planned operation, not a chance encounter. You need to move now. Before Hendricks could respond, the first shot cracked across the valley. Madison saw Rivera spin and drop, his leg collapsing under him. Not a kill shot, but enough to immobilize him and pin the team in place. The ambush had been initiated. Then all hell broke loose. Machine gun fire raked the valley from multiple positions. RPGs streaked through the cold air, detonating against rocks and frozen ground. The SEAL team scrambled for whatever cover they could find in terrain that offered precious little protection. Madison assessed the tactical situation in seconds. The hostile force was 1,500 meters from the SEAL position. She was 800 meters from the SEALs, which put her at approximately 2,000 meters from the ambush positions. Extreme range even under ideal conditions, and these conditions were far from ideal. Wind was gusting unpredictably. Temperature was affecting her ballistics, and she was shooting at an upward angle that complicated the mathematics. But math was just math, and Madison had spent 6 years learning to solve these problems. She transitioned from her spotting scope to the Mk13 Mod 7 sniper rifle, the .300 Winchester Magnum that had been her companion through 73 previous operations. The weapon came up naturally, muscle memory from thousands of repetitions guiding her movements. She acquired the first target, a machine gunner whose sustained fire was keeping the SEAL team pinned. The wind gusted, and Madison compensated, adjusting her point of aim by feel as much as calculation. She found her natural respiratory pause, that moment between breaths where her body was completely still, and began applying pressure to the trigger. Gradual, steady, inevitable. The Mk-13 cracked, and through her scope, Madison watched the hostile machine gunner jerk backward and disappear from his position. First threat eliminated, she worked her bolt and acquired her second target, an RPG gunner, preparing to fire at what he thought was a helpless American position. He never completed the shot. Madison's second round caught him center mass, and both he and his weapon tumbled down the rocky slope. SEAL 1, Overwatch is engaging hostile positions at extreme range. I've eliminated their primary machine gun and one RPG team, but you're still taking fire from multiple positions. Can you move? Hendrix's voice came back strained. Negative, Overwatch. Rivera is down with a leg wound. We're taking sustained fire from at least 3 positions, and we don't have clear routes out of this kill zone. We need... His transmission was cut off by another burst of machine gun fire. Through her scope, Madison could see the SEALs were in serious trouble. Rivera was down and couldn't move without assistance. The rest of the team was pinned behind inadequate cover, burning through ammunition trying to suppress an enemy force that had all the advantages of position and numbers. Standard Guardian sniper protocols said Madison should maintain her position and continue engaging at distance, providing long-range precision fire while calling for additional support. But the nearest quick reaction force was 45 minutes away by helicopter. Air support was grounded due to weather conditions deteriorating rapidly, and the SEAL team didn't have 45 minutes. They had maybe 10 minutes before the hostile force either overran their position or killed them all with sustained fire. Madison made her decision without hesitation. She broke down her hide position with practiced speed, securing the Mk-13 across her back and bringing her M4 carbine into her hands. The shorter weapon was better suited for what she was about to do, close the distance and engage the hostile force at ranges where her technical shooting skills could be combined with aggressive tactical movement. She keyed her radio one more time. SEAL 1, I'm moving to your position. Give me 8 minutes and I'll be close enough to provide direct fire support. Keep your heads down and stay alive. There was a pause, then Hendrix came back sounding shocked. Overwatch, Guardian snipers don't close distance. You're supposed to maintain separation and engage from... Lieutenant, with respect, the rulebook just became irrelevant. Your team is about to be overrun, and I'm the only asset close enough to do anything about it. I'm moving now. Overwatch out. Madison began moving through the Siberian terrain with controlled aggression that balanced speed against the very real risk of injury. 800 meters of snow-covered ground, scattered rocks, frozen streams that could break an ankle if you stepped wrong. Under normal circumstances, it would take 20 to 30 minutes to traverse safely. Madison covered it in 7 minutes. She used every piece of terrain for concealment, moving through draws and behind ridgelines, always staying in dead ground where the hostile force couldn't observe her approach. The temperature was brutal, -25 and dropping, but adrenaline kept her warm and focused. The M4 carbine was ready in her hands, spare magazines positioned for quick access, grenades staged for immediate use. At 300 meters from the nearest hostile position, she could see the full scope of the ambush. The enemy fighters had established 3 primary firing positions in a rough L shape around the valley, with additional fighters providing security and ammunition resupply. Professional setup, executed with tactical competence that suggested military training. But they'd made one critical mistake. All their security and attention was focused on the valley where the SEALs were pinned. No one was watching their rear approaches, because who would be crazy enough to attack a 20-man force from behind in the middle of Siberian winter? Madison would, and she was about to teach them why that oversight was fatal. She came up on their positions from the northwest, the direction they weren't expecting threats. Her first targets were 2 fighters providing rear security. Their job was to prevent exactly what Madison was about to do, but they were cold, tired, and focused more on staying warm than maintaining proper vigilance. Both went down to suppressed fire before they even realized someone was behind them. Madison moved past their bodies, already acquiring her next target. A machine gun position 20 meters ahead, 3 fighters working the weapon while keeping the SEAL team pinned. She approached to within 15 meters before engaging, dropping all 3 with controlled pairs, 2 rounds center mass, confirm the hit, transition to next target. The machine gun fell silent. Now the hostile force knew something was wrong, but they didn't understand what. Confusion rippled through their positions as fighters tried to figure out why their supporting fire had stopped. Several started moving toward the silenced machine gun position, and Madison made them pay for that decision. She engaged from a covered position behind rocks, her M4 finding targets with mechanical precision. 4 more fighters down before the rest realized they were being attacked from behind. The coordinated ambush was fragmenting into chaos as the enemy force tried to deal with a threat they hadn't anticipated. But Madison was now exposed and taking return fire. Rounds cracked past her head and sparked off rocks, forcing her to seek better cover. She moved laterally, using smoke and terrain to reposition before concentrated fire could find her. That's when she heard Hendrick's voice over the radio, strained but functional. "Unknown friendly, this is SEAL 1. Identify yourself and your position. You're disrupting enemy fire, but we can't support you if we don't know where you are." Madison keyed her radio while reloading. "SEAL 1, this is Overwatch. I'm approximately 200 meters northwest of your position, currently engaged with the hostile element from their rear. I've eliminated their primary machine gun support and reduced their effective strength by about a third, but I'm taking fire from multiple positions now." There was a pause. Then Hendricks came back sounding somewhere between disbelief and relief. "Overwatch, you're the Guardian sniper? I thought you operated from distance." "Normally I do, Lieutenant. Today I'm improvising. Can you provide suppressive fire on bearing 320 from your position? I've got enemy fighters regrouping in that direction, and I could use some help." "Copy that. Stand by for support fire." The SEAL team opened up with precision fire on the positions Madison had indicated, their rounds forcing the hostile fighters to seek cover and disrupting their attempts to coordinate against her. With the pressure relieved, Madison moved again, relocating to a position that gave her better angles on the remaining threats. She worked methodically through the remaining fighters, an RPG gunner trying to get into position, 2 riflemen attempting to flank the SEAL team, another machine gunner setting up in a new location. Each engagement was quick and decisive. Identify the threat, engage with controlled fire, confirm the hit, move before return fire could locate her position. The hostile force was collapsing now under pressure from 2 directions. What had been a professional ambush had turned into a desperate fight for survival. Some fighters attempted to withdraw, but they were moving across terrain that Madison could observe clearly. She transitioned back to her MK-13 for the long-range shots, and the precision rifle proved why she'd carried it for 6 years. Fighters who thought they'd reached safety discovered that distance provided no protection against someone with her skills. After 20 minutes of sustained combat, the battlefield fell silent, except for the wind howling across the Siberian landscape. The hostile force had been destroyed or driven off. Madison conducted a careful scan of the area, confirming no immediate threats remained before keying her radio. "SEAL 1, Overwatch. Hostile force has been neutralized or dispersed. Your position is secure. I'm moving to your location to assist with casualty treatment." She approached the SEAL position carefully, announcing her approach and waiting for confirmation before moving into view. When she finally emerged from behind the rocks, all 4 SEALs stared at her with expressions that suggested they were trying to reconcile multiple contradictory pieces of information. Madison pulled back her white winter hood, revealing a face weathered by 6 years of operations in harsh environments. Auburn hair braided tight against her skull, gray-green eyes that missed nothing, a small scar above her left eyebrow from an operation in Syria. She moved immediately to where Rivera was sitting against a rock, his leg bleeding but already bandaged by his teammates. "Let me see that wound," she said, kneeling beside him and pulling out her trauma kit. Her hands moved with practiced efficiency, checking the bandage, verifying that the bullet had passed through muscle without hitting bone or major vessels, administering pain medication, and securing a better dressing. Rivera watched her work with a mixture of pain and fascination. "Ma'am, who exactly are you?" "Staff Sergeant Madison Clark, Guardian Sniper Program. I've been providing overwatch for your operation for the past 4 days." Hendricks, who'd been scanning for threats while Cole provided security, turned to face her directly. "4 days? We've been operating independently. There was no mention of Guardian support in our mission brief." "That's how Guardian operations work, Lieutenant. You don't know we're there. We shadow special operations teams from distance, eliminate threats before they develop, provide early warning of enemy movements, and generally make sure you can focus on your mission objectives without worrying about security beyond your immediate perimeter." Madison finished treating Rivera's wound and stood. "Usually we maintain complete separation, and you never know we exist." This situation was unusual. Cole, a veteran SEAL with 20 years of experience, spoke up. "Ma'am, I've worked with sniper overwatch elements from every service branch. What you just did wasn't overwatch. That was direct action at close quarters against a numerically superior force. How many targets did you personally engage?" 16 confirmed. "Possibly 3 more, but I couldn't verify in the confusion." Madison said it matter-of-factly, without pride or false modesty. The tactical situation required adaptation from standard Guardian protocols. Bennett, the youngest team member at 26, couldn't help but ask, "You were tracking us for 4 days and we never knew you were there?" "That's my job. Guardian snipers operate alone, maintain perfect concealment, and engage threats before teams even realize they're threatened. You've probably had Guardian overwatch on multiple previous operations without knowing it." Before the conversation could continue, the weather made its presence known. The wind that had been merely cold suddenly became savage, gusting with enough force to actually push people sideways. The temperature dropped noticeably, and the sky took on the peculiar darkness that experienced operators recognized as warning of serious incoming weather. Madison looked at the darkening sky and felt the wind pattern with instincts honed by years in harsh environments. "We need to find shelter immediately. There's a major storm system moving in, probably within the next 30 minutes. Staying in this valley will be fatal." Hendricks trusted her judgment without question. Anyone who could do what she'd just done had earned credibility. "Recommendations?" "There's a cave system approximately 2 kilometers north of here. I identified it during my reconnaissance of this area 2 days ago. It'll provide protection from the wind and cold, concealment from observation, and defensible positions if we need them." "Rivera can move?" Madison nodded. "The leg wound will hurt, but it won't prevent movement. I've administered pain medication, and the bleeding is controlled. We should rotate carrying his gear to reduce his load, but he can walk with assistance." They began moving immediately, with Madison taking point, because she had the best knowledge of the terrain and route to the cave system. Cole supported Rivera, who moved with gritted determination despite the pain. Hendricks and Bennett provided security, constantly scanning for any remnants of the hostile force that might be regrouping. The storm hit before they reached the caves, transforming the landscape into a white hell within minutes. Visibility dropped to less than 20 meters, temperature plummeted to -30°C, and the wind began shrieking across the mountains with enough force to make standing difficult. But Madison kept them moving, navigating by GPS and terrain memory through conditions that would have left most people hopelessly lost. They reached the cave system just as the storm reached full fury. The caves weren't large, but they cut deep enough into the mountain to provide protection from the wind and cold. Madison led them to the best position, a chamber about 15 meters deep with a narrow entrance that could be easily defended and good thermal properties that would retain body heat. As they established their defensive position and tried to warm up, the SEALs began asking questions about Madison and the Guardian Sniper Program. She answered what she could within classification limits, explaining the selection process, the training, the psychological preparation for extended solo operations. "How long have you been doing Guardian operations?" Rivera asked, his pain medication starting to take effect and making him more talkative. 6 years. This is my 73rd operation. Most of them go exactly as planned. I maintain position at distance, eliminate threats the team never sees, and everyone goes home without the team even knowing I was there. What happened today was exceptional circumstances. Exceptional how? Hendricks wanted to know. The ambush was set up with professional tactical competence that suggested military training rather than local militants. The hostile force knew you were coming and had prepared accordingly. Standard Guardian overwatch from 2,000 meters wasn't going to save you. The engagement would have been over before I could affect the outcome, so I closed the distance and engaged directly. Have you done that before? Transitioning from overwatch to close quarters combat? Madison was quiet for a moment before answering. Once, in Syria 3 years ago, a Delta Force element walked into a complex ambush similar to this one. Standard protocols weren't sufficient to address the threat level, so I adapted. Closed to within 50 meters and engaged the enemy force from their flank while Delta fought from their positions. We eliminated 37 hostiles between us with 0 American casualties. Cole let out a low whistle. That's not in any doctrine I've ever read about sniper operations. Because it's not doctrine. It's adaptation based on tactical necessity. Guardian snipers are trained for long-range precision, but we also receive extensive close-quarters combat training because situations don't always permit engagement from distance. Sometimes the best way to protect a team is to be in the fight with them. The storm raged outside the cave for the next 6 hours, the wind howling like something alive, and the temperature dropping to levels that would have killed anyone caught in the open within an hour. The team rotated watch schedules, shared rations, and tried to stay warm in conditions that were merely uncomfortable rather than fatal, a significant improvement over the alternative of being exposed to the full fury of the Siberian winter storm. As evening approached and the storm finally began to break, Hendricks moved to sit next to Madison during her rest period. "Clark, I need to ask you something. You saved our lives today, saved us from an ambush we didn't see coming, then protected us through a storm that would have killed us if we'd been stuck in that valley. Why do you do this work? Operating alone for days or weeks, no recognition, no credit, no one even knowing you exist." Madison was silent for a long moment, staring at the cave entrance where the storm was still visible but finally beginning to weaken. "My father was a Marine officer, deployed to Iraq in 2004 with a rifle company during some of the heaviest fighting of that war. He was a good officer, tactical, smart, took care of his Marines, but one day his patrol walked into an ambush. A sniper they never saw killed him and 3 of his Marines before they could respond." She paused, the memory still sharp after so many years. "I was 16 when it happened, spent the next couple years angry, at the war, at the insurgents, at the universe for taking him away. When I joined the Army and eventually qualified for sniper school, I realized I wanted to be the person who prevented that from happening to other families, the invisible guardian who eliminates threats before they can kill good people who are just trying to do their jobs. Your father would be proud of what you do." Maybe. Or maybe he'd think I was crazy for spending 6 years lying in frozen mud making shots most people think are impossible. But it's not about what he'd think. It's about making sure other 16-year-old kids don't lose their parents to enemies they never saw coming. The storm broke completely around 2100 hours, leaving the landscape transformed by fresh snow, but finally passable. The team prepared to move to their extraction point, which was now 23 kilometers away through terrain that would be challenging even without a wounded team member. Madison moved with them, transitioning smoothly back into her overwatch role, but now operating within direct communication range and sight distance rather than kilometers away. She rotated between point position and rear security, using her terrain reading skills to find the best routes and her tactical awareness to spot potential threats before the team encountered them. They moved through the night, covering ground steadily despite the difficult conditions. Madison spotted 2 separate enemy patrols during the movement, both searching for the American team that had disrupted the ambush earlier. She vectored the SEALs around one patrol completely. The second couldn't be avoided, but Madison eliminated the 3-man observation post from 600 meters with 3 precise shots that the main SEAL element never even heard. The extraction helicopters arrived exactly on schedule at 0630 hours. Blackhawks coming in fast and low to the designated landing zone in a valley that offered some protection from observation. The SEAL team loaded quickly, maintaining security until the birds lifted off and gained altitude. Madison was the last one aboard, taking her habitual position near the door where she could maintain observation until they were clear of hostile territory. As the helicopters climbed away from the Siberian wilderness, she felt the familiar mixture of relief at mission completion and the slight melancholy that always came with returning to civilization after extended solo operations. Hendricks moved to sit next to her once they were safely airborne. "Clark, I need to tell you something. I'm going to file an after-action report on this operation, and I'm including a full account of your actions. What you did deserves recognition." Madison shook her head immediately. "Lieutenant, if you file that report with details about Guardian sniper operations and my specific actions, you'll compromise not just me, but the entire program. The effectiveness of what we do depends on operational security. You start documenting Guardian snipers engaging in direct action, and suddenly, every hostile force knows to start looking for us. That makes every future operation more dangerous and less effective." "So what do I put in my report?" "That your element encountered a prepared ambush by hostile forces estimated at 20 personnel with heavy weapons. That you successfully defended your position, eliminated the hostile force through superior tactics and firepower, displaced during deteriorating weather conditions to a shelter position, and were extracted on schedule with one minor casualty. All of which is true. It's not the complete truth. It's enough truth to satisfy operational reporting requirements while maintaining appropriate security for classified programs." Madison's tone softened slightly. "Lieutenant, I appreciate what you're trying to do, but there are 16 hostile fighters who won't threaten American forces again. There are 4 SEALs who are going home to their families. That's the only recognition that matters to me." The debriefing happened 3 days later at a secure facility in Germany. Madison sat across a conference table from Colonel Rachel Foster, who commanded the Special Operations Task Force that included Guardian sniper operations, and a civilian named David Reynolds, who represented the organization that actually ran the Guardian sniper program. "Staff Sergeant Clark," Foster began, "I've reviewed the classified operation reports from multiple sources, including Guardian program documentation and Lieutenant Hendricks' after-action report, which, I note, contains no specific mention of your involvement despite the fact that his entire team knows exactly what happened." "He followed operational security protocols for classified programs, ma'am." Reynolds leaned forward, his expression unreadable. "Madison, let's discuss what actually happened in Siberia. You were conducting a standard Guardian overwatch operation, maintaining appropriate separation from the SEAL element. When they walked into a prepared ambush, you made the tactical decision to abandon standard protocols, close to contact distance, and engage in direct close-quarters combat against a numerically superior force. The tactical situation required adaptation, sir. Standard Guardian protocols, engaging from extreme range while maintaining separation from the protected element, weren't sufficient to address the threat. The SEAL team would have been overrun or destroyed before long-range precision fire could eliminate enough threats to change the outcome. I assessed the situation and determined that closing distance and engaging the hostile force from their flank was the only viable option to prevent American casualties." Foster spoke next. "You made the right decision. That's not in question. What is in question is whether this represents a pattern. This is the second time in your career that you've transitioned from traditional Guardian operations to direct action engagement. The first was in Syria 3 years ago, similar circumstances." "Yes, ma'am. Both situations involved prepared ambushes by professionally trained enemy forces where standard long-range engagement wasn't sufficient to protect the teams I was assigned to guard. So you've now established a precedent. When conditions warrant it, you'll abandon Guardian protocols and engage directly at close quarters." Reynolds's tone was neutral, neither approving nor disapproving. I've established that I'll adapt tactics based on the tactical situation and the capabilities I bring to the fight. My primary mission is protecting American forces. The methods I use to accomplish that mission depend on circumstances. Foster and Reynolds exchanged glances, clearly having discussed this before the meeting. Foster spoke first. "We're not disciplining you. Your actions saved 4 American lives and eliminated a significant hostile force. That's exactly what the Guardian Sniper program is designed to accomplish. However, we need to address the implications of your tactical adaptations. We're creating a new position within the program," Reynolds explained. "Advanced Guardian operators, snipers who are trained and authorized to transition between long-range overwatch and direct action engagement as situations warrant. You'll be the first person formally assigned to this role, and you'll help us develop the training and protocols for future operators. We're also promoting you to Sergeant First Class effective immediately," Foster added, "and assigning you to the Guardian Sniper Training Program as the lead instructor for advanced operations. You'll spend the next 6 months training the next generation of Guardian snipers in both traditional long-range operations and the tactical flexibility to adapt when circumstances demand it." Madison nodded, accepting the promotion and assignment, though she privately preferred field operations to training duties. But she understood the logic. Her operational experience over 6 years and 73 missions needed to be passed on to the next generation of operators who would protect American warriors from the shadows. Over the following months, Madison trained 12 new Guardian snipers in advanced operations concepts. She taught them precision marksmanship and long-range engagement, but also close-quarters combat, tactical movement, and most importantly, the mental flexibility to recognize when situations demanded adaptation from standard protocols. The program evolved based on her experiences and input from other Guardian operators who'd encountered similar situations. New protocols were developed for when and how Guardian snipers should transition from Overwatch to direct action. Equipment loadouts were modified to support both operational modes. Training was enhanced to ensure operators could function effectively across the full spectrum of Guardian operations. 3 years after the Siberian operation, Commander Jake Hendricks, now promoted and leading a larger SEAL element, was conducting operations in northern Canada when his team encountered unexpected resistance. As they maneuvered under fire from a hostile force that had them temporarily pinned, Hendricks's radio crackled with a transmission that was becoming familiar. "SEAL Actual, Overwatch, I have eyes on your position and the hostile force engaging you. 22 personnel with crew-served weapons attempting to establish an L-shaped ambush around your location. Recommend immediate displacement to bearing 270. I'll provide covering fire during your movement." Hendricks keyed his radio, unable to suppress a slight smile despite the tactical situation. "Copy that, Overwatch. Moving on your mark, and whoever you are, thanks for being there." "That's the job, SEAL Actual. Now move." He never learned if it was Madison or one of the 12 operators she'd trained providing Overwatch that day. The voice was deliberately neutral, the call sign generic, maintaining the operational security that made Guardian operations effective. But as his team successfully displaced under precision covering fire that eliminated threats from distances they couldn't even see, Hendricks knew that somewhere out there, a Guardian was watching. Madison Clark continued operational work for another 7 years, building a record of 198 confirmed kills across 86 Guardian operations. She trained a total of 37 advanced Guardian operators who went on to protect special operations teams across 6 combat zones. She never sought recognition, never gave interviews, never appeared in official photographs. Her service remained classified at levels that ensured most people would never know Guardian snipers existed. But in certain secure briefing rooms at Special Operations Commands, senior officers knew about the Guardian Sniper program and the advanced operators who could transition seamlessly between long-range precision and close-quarters combat depending on what the tactical situation demanded. They knew about the day in Siberia when a Guardian sniper named Madison Clark abandoned standard protocols, charged into an ambush, and saved 4 American lives through a combination of impossible shooting and aggressive tactical action. They knew, and they were grateful, even if they could never publicly acknowledge it. Years later, when training a new class of Guardian sniper candidates, Madison was asked what sustained her through the isolation, the danger, the psychological pressure of operating completely alone in hostile territory while carrying the weight of other people's lives on her shoulders. Her answer was always the same. My father died because a sniper he never saw killed him from a position he couldn't identify. I spent my entire career making sure that doesn't happen to other families. Whether I'm engaging from 2 kilometers away or fighting at close quarters doesn't matter. What matters is that American warriors come home alive to their families. That's been my mission from the beginning, and it's the only mission that's ever mattered. The Guardian Sniper program continued to expand and evolve, incorporating both traditional long-range Overwatch operations and advanced Guardian protocols that permitted tactical flexibility when situations demanded it. The training was enhanced, the equipment improved, the selection process refined, but the core principle remained unchanged. American warriors operating in hostile territory deserved protection from threats they couldn't see, and Guardian snipers provided that protection whether from impossible distances or from within the fight itself. The wolf doesn't announce itself to the sheep. It just does what wolves do when sheep need protecting. Sometimes the wolf watches from distant hills. Sometimes it walks through storms with a rifle in hand. Sometimes it fights beside the flock, adapting to whatever the situation demands, doing whatever is necessary to ensure the sheep come home safely. Because in the end, the work is what matters. Not the recognition, not the glory, not the credit or the awards or the public acknowledgement, just the knowledge that somewhere American warriors are coming home alive to their families because someone was watching over them from the shadows,